Hello everyone, it's Hedy. Today we're back to talk about Hated Rivalry. The first part is going to be solely about the episode, what I felt about them, my analysis of them. I made general notes on each episode and also marked the precise things I want to talk about, so it's still kind of a lot. So I'm not gonna tackle everything, but we're gonna go deep into it. We're gonna try to analyze and talk about what was good and what was bad. And also, we're gonna ask ourselves, is this good rep or bad rep? We're going to talk in part 2 about all of the criticism that has been made about Hated Rivalry, the good criticism, including the bad criticism. Hated Rivalry is a novel written by Rachel Reed. I don't know if I'm saying her name well, but Rachel Reed. And the show was directed and created by Jacob Tierney. If I don't say his name well, I'm sorry. It was created for Crave, which is a Canadian streaming service. So Rachel Reed have a whole series of book from the Game Changers series, which is a whole series of book about, well, homosexuality, tension, etc. around hockey, around sports, and how to break out of that. It's a lot of story, and of course it includes a lot of sex. And yes, I'm not gonna say the word because YouTube is watching me right now. I'm scared. So we're following Ilya and Shane, Ilya Rozanov and Shane Hollander, two rival professional hockey player that ends up together by the end. Their romance is complicated because homosexuality and being queer in general in a sport like hockey is something that is quite controversial and not accepted. This is why a series like that is very important, because in the real world, sports like hockey, rugby, or things like those have this high masculinity stereotype, genre, whatever. Being queer kind of defies that, even if being queer does not mean you have to change your masculinity or whatever. But in general, queerness is not seen as something masculine, but something more feminine, something more, you know, how queer people are often insulting for being effeminate. Ilya Rozanov is Russian and Shane is Canadian and also Asian. I think he's Japanese if I'm not wrong. Ilya Rozanov is Russian, and this is not a Russian propaganda. Media literacy is dead the moment people thought that out of everything you've been hearing about Russia in this series was to praise Russia. Absolutely not. This is the contrary. This is a criticism of Russia, criticism of the harsh treatment that queer people get in Russia and how harsh and severe Russia is. Before starting, I want to say that this video is solely about the series. I didn't read the book intentionally. My goal here is to talk about the show, what we see in the show, etc. The book is often another subject. It's what they use to create a series, but there's also a lot of differences, and that's why I want to make a video separated for the book, the differences between the show and the book, and what is inside the book, if it's this different or not, if the intentions are different, etc, etc. So for part 1, I'm going to go, like I said, episode by episode, but I want to talk about some of the things that I felt were interesting before making a deep dive into it. So my first point is, the tone is fast, so you have to pay a lot of attention because, well, everything is moving quite quickly, everything needs to go really quickly, so you still have to pay some kind of attention. But if you don't, it's fine. You're just gonna miss here and there informations about the characters, psychology, etc. I think depending on the episode, they did better or worse. For example, in episode 3, their story is what makes Ilya and Shane move forward. Unfortunately, I think I'm a bit lost about what happened after episode 3 with Scott and Kip, since we don't really see what happens in between. The whole angst at the end of episode 3 is left a bit unexplained, a bit longing there, and then we have the answer by episode, I think it's episode 5. And to me, the pacing of the story, because of that, is kind of broken, but that's my personal opinion and that's how I felt about it. It's not that the episode is bad, it's just the pacing. I'm really talking just about the pacing of the story. Sometimes it felt a bit too fast and you had to be looking. But it's normal because they had to fit 10 years in 6 episodes, which is not easy. They really pay attention to filmmaking and the meaning of filmmaking. I feel like they really did well in that, and that's why I have a lot to talk about, because they really genuinely used that. It's one of the things of why Hated Rivalry is praised, is because they put a lot of intention in how they created the show with such a low budget and not a lot of time. They had a little bit more than 30 days, I think it was 38 or 37, if I'm not wrong, days to film everything, which is not a lot. It's not a lot, but it was really created well. One thing I want to point out that I find interesting is that all of the women are treated with a lot of care. One thing that happens a lot in comics and gay story, the woman can be portrayed as a side hustle of women that are not really written well and not treated well. And I think that in this story, the women are treated well and are portrayed really well. Even though the character is her, they're still supportive, they're still understanding, there's no making problems out of nothing. That, I don't know, I feel like it's a very sensible way of writing women as characters. The intimate scenes are not only there to have intimate scenes, they serve a purpose in the narrative story, in the storyline, and you have to understand that. I'm not personally very fond of stories that contains a lot of intimate scenes, because I'm not exactly comfortable with that. But I'm part of the people that think it's extremely important to watch things that don't particularly make you feel comfortable, to be able to open your senses, to open a criticism and a category in your brain that you may have not had if you had not watched it. To make it seem to have a narrative purpose and not just be here for porn, which is one of the biggest criticism of the show from people who have not watched it. So we're going to talk about that in part 2, obviously. Throughout the show, Shane is tasked to have a lot of expectations. He's in a lot of ads. His mother is always reminding him that he's an example. And I'm pretty sure that in episode 1 she says that he's an example for the boys. And, you know, his relationship is highly followed by the press. Shane is portrayed as a character that is heavily watched because he feels like he's watched. It's pushing that idea for him really well. In contrary, Ilya is more focused on his family's expectations, his country's expectations, until he loses everything. In general, I don't have a lot of bad criticism to make about it. I think they were very clever. Especially, I talked about the filmmaking, and we're going to dive into it now talking about the episodes, but they made a point with the music. The music is really well used, but sometimes there are some missteps. I don't know, I would have not used those energetic songs at some point, but most of the time the music is really well used, and it tells a lot about the characters too. Most of the time, the filmmaking process, the scenes they decided to highlight, etc., are very cleverly done. I don't know, I don't have a lot of criticism to make. It's a sweet story. There's not much to say about it. It talks about the struggles of being homosexual, the struggles of Russia. It talks about a lot of things, but it's quite simple and sensible, and that's why it's liked a lot. It's because it's deep, but not too deep. It's a romance story, and that's one of the most human category you could find. So in episode 1, we start in December 2008. In my opinion, episode 1 is an excellent start, and we're going to talk about this first scene because I think it tells a lot about the characters and what we learn about them. The first scene is, to me, very genius. It's very awkward because Ilya is not exactly responsive at first, and you see Shane a bit struggling. The first thing that Shane says is Ilya's name, and the first encounter describes the character well because we are setting a tone. We open with Ilya's back turned to us. I would say that him being turned to us as the first image we see of him is a way to tell us that Ilya is a bit closed off at first, It's like he's turning his back to us, we don't see his reaction, and then the camera shifts and he shifts on the opposite side. But the fact that he's turned around and the first thing that Shane says is Ilya's name, to me is kind of like a nod. Is this in the book? I don't know. But to me it's significant. Ilya will be a character that is going to be more closed off, is a character that is going to turn his back multiple times to protect himself in some kind of way, and Shane will find a reassurance in Ilya. This is the kind of the thing that tells me when I see the scene. Props to Hudson for portraying Shane's autism really well. A lot of people makes the criticism, which we're going to talk about, Shane being awkward, and they say that what is awkward is Hudson, that you guys don't realize that is meant to be awkward because the character is autistic. It's very funny to me that Shane is presented as someone who's not sociable when he's the one that reached out first to Ilya. Because it's a contrast, and to me it tells a lot in the way that the story is going to move forward. Even if it's hard and he's not very good socially, Shane is going to make the first steps, which happens later on when he is the one that bravely tells Ilya that he likes him and that it's not as easy as it was anymore. He makes the first step, and that's exactly what happened in episode 1. He made the first step, and I think it's very well done that they depicted that in episode 1. The first scene they made was that, when a few minutes later we're told that he's not very sociable. I think it's very sensible to write something like that and to make it in the filmmaking process. We learned that Ilya is also a strong skater, he's strong on the puck, he gets under other players' skin, and he's good in his own room, but not like in the opponent's room. Wink wink. Shane and Ilya are portrayed as very strong opposites, that's why they're rivals, they're very opposites, two very good players, but that have two different opposite characters and personalities. Later on, we see and learn that Shane lost in episode 1. We see a discomfort in Shane's way of acting, and the camera and the filmmaking process supports that. There's a lot that is going on. There's the music, the flashes, the photographers. There's Ilya on his side, taking a lot of place. He's smiling widely, and Shane being so uncomfortable in the moment is really well portrayed. Everything is just too much, and it's almost too much for us who's watching. Maybe it's also because my mind is not exactly normal, but I was extremely uncomfortable watching that. I felt Shane a lot, and we concentrate on his disappointment, how he's uncomfortable, and the scene is supporting that. Everything is just too much on your brain, and it's really clever that they didn't shy away from making you uncomfortable as much. The scene that follows also focuses on his discomfort. The camera gets closer to him as our attention shifts from the man talking to be fully on Shane, because even if the character is still talking, what we want to see is Shane's reaction. It's what he feels, his discomfort, and the character is just an echo in his mind, so we don't have to see it, we just have to hear it, which I think is important. We repeat a lot in the scene that he's second, because for him it's a loss, he lost, but they still praise him, but for him it's not good. He's not comfortable again, and the show pointed out with the way they made the scene close to him. Then we have the scene with Ilya that changes. This time we're going backwards, but we're still not concentrating on what the man is saying. It's completely in Ilya's mind, and there's a contrast between Shane's proud mother and Ilya's father, who is way much more cold, who is warning Ilya to still do good, who'll still be good, is making a lot of pressure on Ilya. But we are moving away, creating a new scene, having a broader sense of what Ilya as a character is. And we hear it exactly like Shane. It's something that integrates and enters our brain like an echo, which is a very good representation of people's expectations. Most of the time, it's not even the person, it's just what they say that stays in our head, and the filmmaking process really puts weight into that. We learn quite quickly in the episode that Ilya doesn't have a very good family, that he doesn't go along well with his brother because he calls him the F slur, which is not really good. But through all of that, we have the tension between Shane and Ilya that is growing, because Ilya makes a point into making the ad with Shane because he is the one who asked it. We have the longing, the distant stares, they are staring at each other, they have a lot of intention towards each other from the get-go, from the beginning. They use the lightning very well, all those shots really well. The lightning expresses a lot. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's just focused on them, but it's enough. Where, for example, the lightning is made to cut out everyone else from the world, and the only two who really exist is Shane and Ilya. Even when there's a lot of people and they're talking to other people, it's really concentrated on them, their attention is on each other, and that's it. And it's supported by the filmmaking and the lightning of the scenes. Then we have the shower scene. I want to talk about the shower scene because it's the first time that they're really engage, that they really engage in something intimate like that, where you see where their relationship is going. But I want to talk about how the washroom is so bright, it's white, it represents a lot of things like clarity and honesty, and here Ilya is not shying away from showing Shane what he wants. And Shane gets the message very clearly, which is supported by the fact that the washroom is a place where you're like, there's nothing to lie about, aren't we? You're like completely naked in front of someone, I mean. And very quickly we have the first real bedroom scene. Again, we have a dark and intimate setting, but this time it's warm, the colors are warm, there's a lot of warmth, and it's tender, it's not rushed, and that's why I'm talking about it. I'm talking about the sex scenes. Later on in the story, the sex scene will not be warm, it will be rushed, it will be awkward, like I'm going to say awkward to me, but it will be, the tenderness and the intimacy is living away because they are in a dark time in their relationship. But I'm really glad that they are not shying away from showing it. There's a lot of straight romance that depicts sex, and there's no problem in that, so there shouldn't be any problem with depicting sex in a gay story either. Sex is a part of life. There's no need to shy away from making scenes and talking like that, talking about it, showing it, because it's completely normal. By wanting to erase the intimate scenes from Heated Rivalry, you're also following the idea that it's something to be ashamed about. Being gay is something to be ashamed about for society. So when you say that they shouldn't be showing that it's too much, etc., most of the times the people who say that are not people who actually think or have any problem with intimate scenes in general. They have a problem with seeing intimate gay scene. There's a lot of understanding between them. Ilya is very careful and respectful, and they don't go into it directly, which I find really realistic. They don't go into the big game, let's say, directly. They are taking their time, and the tenderness in the scene is very important to me, that they depict it like that, because it's something that is lacking, I think, in homosexuality represented in media. The tenderness, the understanding, etc. is often forgotten to jump directly, like I said, in the big game, which is a reality. Sometimes people don't wait, people are prepared for that, etc. But for this story and Shane's lack of experience, etc., it's really well represented that they don't jump into it like that blindly without any preparation, without, Yes, I'm going down. I'm looking down because I look at my notes. Okay, I need them. This video did not come with my ass. I had to prepare it, so there's a lot of things in there. I have to look down. Then we have the conference scene, which is a clear masterpiece. There is no person in front of them. We don't see them, we just see the spots because the focus is on them, then on their foot, and then up again. But the lights that is shining on them, the questions, they're just echoes, just like we talked about earlier. Ilya sometimes is a bit uncomfortable, so Shane takes the lead, and they show their understanding with their feet. And we have the traveling of the camera that is very well done, and the sound behind it that is really well done. The multiple shift of the camera that just tells a story and here entails that they find comfort in each other and that they're ready to help each other. They're just not, it's not only a question. In episode 1, they directly tell you this is not only a question of being partners and lovers. It's something else. It's something else than that. Even if they don't exactly realize that now, they're closer than they think they are. Svetlana, I'm gonna try to not mispronounce her name. Svetlana is introduced at the end of episode 1. Well, at the end. Almost the end. And it was like, oh my god, he has a girlfriend? No, it's not his girlfriend, but I was like, oh, this makes everything more complicated there. But it's just because Ilya is not shying away from having partners. The rooftop ending where they are arguing with each other is, to me, very cleverly done. We're behind Shane and we're following his movement. It's the night and we still hear the music when he gets out of the party. The camera stops following Shane as he advances towards Ilya. The music stops as he approaches and the wind picks up. We have 2 scenes where we are below them, then at their shoulders. So us being sometimes below them and sometimes at their shoulder is, to me, a representation that they don't really are understanding each other. We're not exactly on equal footing. Sometimes they think they are, but in reality they are not. There's something that is not told, something they don't talk about, and a tension that is installed. And you see that, the tension with the lack of music playing, the wind picking up, etc. You enter a scene where the tension is picking up. He starts to leave, like at the start. Shane is the one who's first leaving while Ilya stays there. This is a parallel. The ending is a parallel to the start, where Shane is the one that reached out first, and Shane is also the one that leaves first, because Ilya is not really open. But this time, Ilya doesn't let Shane go away, and he kisses him instead. There's a hopeful music that starts playing, and Shane is scared and stop the kiss. What if people saw us? Shane, Ilya, sorry. In episode 2, we start with back-to-back shots of them. Ilya is in Moscow and Shane is in Montreal, if you want to say it in French. Have a slow pace in their relationship compared to Kip and Scott, who ended up happening very quickly. We see a lot of chasing, a lot of longing happening in the year where they are separated. And Ilya chases clearly after Shane. Shane is a bit put off because he's scared. But Ilya clearly chases after Shane. And mind you, I had the exact same reaction to Shane when I saw the DECK pic. I was like, oh, I was not ready for that one. As a woman, it happened to me a lot. I was not ready for that one. Ilya is a rage batter. Really, one thing that I find very funny is that he doesn't shy away from making Shane mad all the time. And then they end up seeing each other again, which will lead to an SEX scene. The camera setting in this is very interesting because they're kind of far away, they're making small talk, and we see them, like, we are far from them. And then we get a close shot because Shane is kind of waiting for Ilya. And what happens in your brain is a kiss will happen. Something will happen there. Will he do it? Won't they? And that's what happens. They do it. They use a very long scene that they don't cut. It's one scene that they filmed. And I feel like it's heading to the intimacy that we see. We're kind of not intruding per se, but more as in we're entering an intimacy that we were not in before. And I think this is very sensible, and that's why the scene is not cut. But we have the moments where they're kind of blurred, etc. That puts a kind of distance. And thank God, use protection. That's another criticism, portraying the gay couple as having protection. STDs is not only for women and men. You guys need protection, or at least get tested really often, because considering Ilya does not shy away from having other partners, you need protection. Don't do anything without protection, kids. I mean kids. Adults, because apparently you have to remind that to adults too. I kind of am doing the mom talk here. I think it's necessary. This is one of the biggest criticism of those scenes that I've seen, that I find extremely ridiculous. But then, later on, in winter 2014, we see the downfall, kind of Ilya. A lot of things are happening to him in Russia, and once again, this is how clever they are. All of the questions that the interviewers are asking are all mixing up, and you can see that Ilya is kinda in a headspace because he just lost. And then we have Shane at the cafe. Once again, in this episode, we learn a lot about Ilya's family and his struggles with his own family, the fact that he gives money to his brother, etc., etc. For example, he sends a message to Ilya saying, "Where the fuck are you? Dad is fucking mad at you." And we now see that he begins to be cold. Ilya becomes cold towards Shane. Shane goes to that high skating thing, which is, Ilya is also present to that scene. I think that scene is really well portrayed, because we had a few minutes before shown them into a very deep intimacy, that they understood each other very well. But suddenly it's the opposite. They don't seem to understand each other, and this time it's Shane chasing after Ilya, but Ilya doesn't let him. And in the filmmaking process, in the scene, first of all, the tone is really cool because, well, we are in the ice skating, place, the rink, the gymnasium. How do you call that? I don't know. But the way they're framed in the scene shows an immense distance, really distant physically and emotionally, psychologically. They're completely away from each other because, like I said, Ilya will turn his back on Shane, like we saw in episode 1, and like I told you in episode 1, the way his back is turned to us is because at some point in the story he is going to turn his back, and that's exactly what he does. He's scared, his family, there's something wrong in it, he knows that his dad is sick, he knows that things are not exactly happening well, and things are crushing down on him, and he becomes cold. But the scene with Shane in Las Vegas during summer broke my heart completely. We see Shane being jealous, and we learn that Ilya has not answered Shane for 6 months. The scene is cut. They are not in a frame in the same time. They're no longer at the same time in the frame. When we want to show characters understanding each other, most of the time we put them in the same frame, which happens a lot during the Scott and Kip episode because they're quite on the same wavelength when they flirt with each other, etc. But it's not the case with Ilya and Shane, especially now. They're clearly not in the same wavelength. It's the contrary, and we're shown that. We have a color grading that this time is dark and not warm. It's the contrary, like I said. There's a lack of clarity and it's dark. You see how the scene is following Shane's mental aspect right there, which is, and I mean their relationship aspect in general, where it's dark, it's not clear, it's not warm, it's confusion from Shane's side and coldness from Ilya's side, because Ilya is scared. Ilya has a lot of problem on his own side. And the music and Hudson tone of voice, that's why I don't agree with people saying that he's a bad actor, because that's really not the case. Shane is really well portrayed in Hudson's hand, really, and it hurts. Thankfully, like I said, the conflict is not resolved with them, Fuckeng. They start talking about generic thing, and it's really great. Now, they are finally framed together, and they're focusing on Shane, who looks very in love, kinda. To me, that's what it brought to me. Shane, who wanted a kiss, and Ilya noticed that and kissed him. Their sweet music. I just gotta say that in that scene, I wanted Ilya to fuck off. I was mad. I was so mad. I understand Ilya. I understand that he's scared. I felt so hurt for Shane. I felt my heart beating like that. Ugh. There's the pressure that is set by the music, and we are entering a different kind of XEX, which shows the gap in their relationship right now. What used to be very tender, very understanding, etc., completely shift. This one was not loving. This one was not tender. This one was hard. This one was full of tension and negative emotions instead of being something tender and out of need, like not need, but of wanting. There's no answer by the end of this. The conflict is not resolved. They didn't do it in the bathroom, but at the end of the day, they tried to do it anyways in the penthouse, but that didn't work because the conflict is still there. At the end, there's no resolution. It's still cold. It's still harsh. Ilya is still closed off. Episode 3 is focused on Kip and Scott, which is really needed to understand Ilya and Shane afterwards. Despite the dislike of this episode that I found online, I think this is an essential episode. It goes perfectly until it goes downhill by the end. And we end kind of episode 3 with a cliffhanger. Are they still together? Are they not together? It's a bit, you don't know. It's only resolved later on, and I say off screen, because I don't exactly understand the timing. If by the time he kisses Kip in front of everyone, I don't understand if by this time they're already again together and they just took a small break that day, or if they were not together at all and Kip just came to the play and just came to the game and Scott took his decision at this moment to repair their relationship. I don't exactly know about that. This is one of the moments I was talking about with the confusion that I had with episode 3 compared to the other episode, the pacing, etc. This relationship is portrayed completely differently. It's just loving. There's no sex friend thing happening. There's a relationship directly that is kind of intense. That is caring and understanding. However, we have some distance that is created by the end of the tour that has trouble mixing. Kip, who has a lot of understanding and a family to understand him, a found family plus his father. Then we have Scott, who is in a place who has his own family, like he created, and he talks about it in the show. But at the same time, the problem is that this family is not exactly understanding of who he is. It's the hockey universe. It's not exactly accepting of homosexuality. And Scott is scared of being who he is. Scott invites Kip into his apartment. We have this scene trailing after Kip, which signifies that we're about to see something from Scott. This is kind of the same will they, won't they with Shane and Ilya I talked about earlier, where there is Shane in the scene and we're just in the frame and we're waiting for Ilya to enter. This is the same type of scene where we follow around Kip. I wrote, we have a scene following Kip in Scott's apartment. They're framing, I know they're gonna kiss. I wrote, so here, I said, yes, no, almost. And a full secret thing, Scott gets naked. I find interesting how Scott and Kip are just completely different than Shane and Ilya. Rachel Reed managed, and of course Jacob, he works in that too, in the writing of the script, etc. They really work well into showing how the two couples are different. One of the things I often see is how queer storylines are repeated and they're kind of like the same, always the same kind of storyline, which is kind of boring, but their relationship is not the same, they don't work the same, and it's very great that they did that. We have episode 4, so as you see, like I said, compared to the start, I have less to talk about because at some point it gets repetitive. The way they use the framing, the way, like, the storytelling was really strong in the start of the episode to me. The way they use different camera work, different places, etc., which they still do by the end, by the way, but it's just becoming repetitive. And in episode 6 is the moment where they actually get together, so it's more tender and more understanding, etc. We're gonna talk about that, obviously, but there's to me, in episode 4, there's a lack of intimacy between them when they do it once again. But that's the first time we really see them. I'm gonna change my way of being, because right now I'm fucking struggling. It's been, if you're wondering, when I'm talking right now, it's been 1 hour and 32 minutes since I started talking. I'm only at episode 4. Get me out of there. And this is the first time, which is funny because it happens after episode 3 where Kip stayed with Scott. So in episode 4, that is the first time that Ilya and Shane stay together the night. And you can see how awkward it is. It's awkward because Shane doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know how to be natural about it. It's kind of like he doesn't know what to do, really. You can see how there's a distance between them, in my opinion, that is often made because of the filmmaking and not really about the characters themselves, but how the scene is made, where it shows a distance between the characters. It kind of feels out of place, in my opinion. That's the feeling I got when I watched it. I might be wrong, that's why I don't have the book now. I wanted to see if I could be wrong in my analysis of the show before reading the book. What kind of distance is that? It's kind of weird. You're in episode 4, so you kind of expect a closeness now, right? But no, actually, they're still in the dark place of their relationship, and you know that when it happens like that, angst is coming, because they don't seem to get better. It's just like they fuck, and then afterwards, we go back to the shots that separates them a lot, and they talk about Svetlana. That's kind of the first time that, if I'm not wrong, that's the first time that Ilya mentions Svetlana in front of Shane, and Shane is clearly jealous. That's jealousy to me. Envy, maybe. Ilya says, I like girls, but I also like you. Thank you, Ilya. But I want to talk about that clever phone call, which represent well how Ilya is in 2 different mind space. He has this personality and persona, and the person that he is when he's in Canada, and the person that he is when he's in Russia. And there's this 2 world that cannot clash together, his romantic interest and his entire world outside of it that cannot clash. He's right now in his Russian world on the phone, so he's on one side, and then he goes back to Shane's side, returning to the other side, so the other painting side, which I find kind of clever. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but it seems to be on purpose with the way the scene was shot. The representation of 2 words that are the same, but they're from the same person, but not the same. It's different. I don't exactly know how to express myself correctly without talking about it for years, so I'm gonna stay at that. And then we go back to intimacy for an intimate scene, and you see how they say each other's first name. They're breaching something that has not been done before, going into an intimacy that has not been used before, and that scared Shane completely. And he pulls away because he's scared. And then we have the scene with Rose. The scene with Rose are very interesting, so I want to talk about them, because they seem perfect, don't they? They laugh, they spend a good time, and Shane seems to be really attracted to her, and it seems like Ilya doesn't even exist anymore, right? It's like, this date with Rose, and it's the perfect shots, the perfect setting, everything is just perfect. It's a perfect date. The world doesn't exist. They just keep talking. We have those shots, back-to-back shots that shows they've been taking the time to talk. It's meant to look easy. Their relationship is meant to look so easy, so understandable, so cute even. It's meant to be simple because this is the simple choice. Of course, Ilya learns that through the news. But let's talk about why they made that appear so easily. There's a multiple reason to why they made that relationship with Shane and Rose so easy. One, because she's a very open person and an understanding person. They have a lot in common, they like the same things, and they really have a great chemistry because they're great friends. But not only that, it's also representing that choosing a woman is a simple choice, that it's easy. You see, you're struggling with Ilya, but why do that when you could have a perfect good relationship with a woman after all, no? It's meant to be portrayed like that, but it's also a portrayal of their relationship like we see through Ilya. We are kind of like watching the news and we see their relationship and it seems easy and it seems so easy to understand. It's like cool to watch and you're like, oh, they look like they love each other, like they're perfect. But that's through Ilya's lens. The same way we see the news too. We don't only see their relationship, we see the news. Because what? Because of what? Because of the fact that they're trying to show us how it's easy to show a perception of things that are just not true. We don't know Shane's internal conflict at those moments. He seems to be okay, he seems to be fun, to have fun, he laughs, he smiles, but in reality, in his head, a lot of things happen, but they're not showing that to you because it's so easy to miss. And if you don't enter Shane's mind, you won't know because he's hiding. And that's what Ilya sees. Someone who he's having fun and he seems to be in love, everything seems perfect, but in reality it's not because the news is not a portrayal of the reality. And then we have the whole Montreal scene where they are in that club, and this one is one of the most perfect scene I've ever seen in my life that depicts two characters, well that's four, but two characters' personality and two characters struggle so well that I'm like, oh, genius. First of all, there's the music. All the things she said. They're dancing in the club and he's here trying to have fun, but he's facing Rose that is dancing with him sensually, but there's a guy at his back. At his back, there's a guy, because in the back of his head, he has a guy in his mind. This is the scene I felt like that. He's facing Rose because that's the choice he made, to be with Rose. But in his back, there's a guy. There's a guy behind him that he doesn't look at, but there's a guy, and it's kind of to me a representation that Ilya is still on his mind. He's just not talking about it. The whole club is like bisexual colors, which I made it here too. I made it on purpose. But at some point we have Ilya seeing Rose and Shane, and then he finds a partner to dance, and then we have the contrary, Shane finding Ilya dancing with the girl, and everything turns to slow-mo. The music also turns slow-mo, and it says, "Being with you has opened my eyes," with Shane looking at Ilya, because here he knows. Okay, he finally understood. He knows, and it opened his eyes that he likes men, and he probably only likes men, but is forcing out of fear to not only like men and to be with a woman that he doesn't like, which is why afterwards we don't have the answer of what happened exactly in that sex scene with Rose, because it's an actual fiasco. And then we have those back-to-back shot of Ilya and Shane during their intimate scene. Ilya is alone, Shane is with Rose, but the way the scenes are made, clearly they are thinking of each other there. And I'm pretty sure that Shane thinks of Ilya, and Ilya clearly thinks of Shane. That's why there's those two back-to-back shots about them. Now we finally entered Shane's mind, that he is not really in love with Rose, that there's something wrong, that he's forcing himself. Quickly, in episode 5, we have Rose clocking Shane. This scene, I cannot talk about how it's so well done. There's a lot of things that I found really well done. This is one of the scenes that I found extremely well done. Reaction here. Yeah, that was my reaction to that scene. Okay, I'm a sensitive person. How do you want me to watch that? Shane's silent understanding that it's okay and not cry about it. Excuse me, this scene was incredible. It was incredibly done. And I really like that Rose ended up laughing about it. That doesn't mean she's not sad. That doesn't mean there's nothing to be sad about. But I'm really glad that she took it well and that she helped him, because clearly she saw that he needed someone to be there, someone that could understand him, not just realize that on his own. And then in 2017, they start to have fun together. Shane and Ilya, their relationship is better, and they will also start to play soon together. Ilya is making fun and is trying to, they're trying to understand each other. Now they've grown up. Now they're no longer teens, they're grown up. They're trying to understand each other, and Ilya is kind of on the same, on the same board now of Shane. At this point, Ilya knows that he's in love with Shane, and Shane knows that he's in love with Ilya. It's just a matter of time of deciding. And then we have the scene with the sunset that is commonly used for different points. The sunset is either used to talk about the ending of things, which could at this time represent the ending, official ending for Ilya of Rose and Shane's relationship, and his understanding that they are not compatible, which is what Shane talks about. So it could be a representation of Shane officially putting an end for Ilya to his relationship with Rose. It could also put the end of their misunderstanding of each other, and that they are finally ready to put a step forward, because sunset are an ending, but it's not a definite one. It's gonna, the sun is about to come back up at some point, so it could also be a representation of that. Then we have the room scene where Shane is trying to express his feelings, and now he's gonna be honest about what he feels, and that not everything is as simple as it was anymore. And we have those back-to-back shots of Shane and Ilya at first in a distance, because Ilya is far away from the room, in the room, and Shane is trying to talk about his feelings, but it's hard. They kiss and they use each other's first name. We didn't see the SEX this time because that wasn't necessary. We had the first ones who were here to show tenderness, understanding, and the start. Then we had the second one, I think, who were meant to show how there was a lack of understanding. It was cold, rough, and hard. And then now we have the new ones where what was important was their talk and their physical intimacy out of SEX, and now it was not necessary to show it at all. We have the phone call that made me cry too. Shane gives him the idea to talk about it in Russian, and basically what Ilya is saying is that he hates Russia and Russia hates him too. Once again, this is not Russian propaganda if you had not understood that yet. That he pays for the family, that they all want more, that his brother hates him. He regrets not having been able to take care of his father, that he'll never be forgiven for his existence, that he loves Shane, and that all he wants is Shane. So he's finally admitting to Shane, without Shane even knowing, that they are on the same wavelength, that he's ready to make a decision. And then we have the skip scene, where the Scott and Kip scene, where they show their relationship to everyone. That's the push that Shane and Ilya needed to understand that they could be together. So it was necessary for it to happen. Scott and Kip needed to happen for Ilya and Shane. Now we have episode 6. So the episode is the climax of everything in the story, the final recognition of their relationship, where we see the most understanding between the characters. Ilya opens up on his life and his mother, which is really sad. And the last episode is extremely warm. It's in the cottage and it's warm, it's sweet, and it's just their relationship and how it works. And it's just a really sweet episode, but also the moment where their relationship is revealed to Shane's mother and father, which is kind of chaotically revealed. Scott's speech is very sweet and important for the audience. And when I say the audience, I mean us, the audience. It's important for the story, of course, but they're talking more to us than to themselves. And I think it's really important to get that. And I cried. Reaction time. And at this point, I don't have a lot to say about the filmmaking process. There's a lot of things that are very intelligent. For example, the moment where they are eating with Shane and, the entire family, and Connor is hitting the pasta, so I'm talking about the actor, but they couldn't really show the pot full of pasta and the dish full of pasta, so they put the entire pot in front of the plate, so it could not be shown that actually there's not a lot of things in there. It's very clever on how the way they filmed the shot and how professionally done this looked, because they don't have a lot of budget, so they don't have a lot of time, don't have a lot of budget, but still they made something very sensible and very unique. So episode 6 is really great because you don't have the parents directly understanding everything, and they're asking questions, which is kind of embarrassing to answer most of the time, to be honest. But I'm really glad that it was still, they tried to understand what was going on, because it's 10 years. It's 10 years of lying and pretending to be someone you're not, and your parents didn't know. It's like, and then the talk that he has with his mother is also very interesting and important, because it's not like he's forgiving her or anything like that. It's a mutual understanding of each other, and it's very important that it's portrayed like that. I think most of the time coming out scenes or scenes where it's talked about are often way too simplified, almost not seemingly like human at all, and it's really just a script of what people think. Two humans who talk about that react, and this time it felt really human, in my opinion, when they talk about it, when Shane's mother and Shane talk about it outside. I really liked how everything was done. In this episode, everything is warm. We learn a bit of Ilya. He opens up about his life and his mother, and there's silly scenes, and of course we're back to intimate scenes that are now just full of understanding of each other and what the other want and need, and is playful, and it has a purpose to like show their relationship now that they are free. So I would say that there's like 4 settings of the sex scene. The scenes at the beginning, who is very understanding and tender. The second ones who are harsh and more hard, and comes from the stem of them not understanding each other anymore. Then the third one, where we don't see them because it's not the focus, the sex scenes are not the focus of it. And the fourth one, where we see them but comes from understanding and playfulness. There's different reason on why they're having that, and at the end of the day, their relationship stemmed from sexual intercourse. So of course, by the end of the show, they will still have sexual intercourse, but way less, and it's way much more sensible, and they act like a couple, even though, they joke around each other, they're playful, etc. They still have a long way to go, but Shane is welcoming Ilya completely, and Ilya is opening up to Shane completely too. It's, like I said, the climax of the relationship at this moment. So to conclude all of this in this video, and what do I mean and why did I talk about all of that? Overall, it was a good season. I understand why people could be put off by the sexual aspect of it. However, I do find it important that we don't enter a space where we refuse every sexual depiction in media for queer people out of purity or real homophobic rhetoric. Now, to each their own. If you want to watch a media like this or not is your own opinion, but you don't have to come say that this is bad or this is gay porn or whatever, because it simply is not. It's really not. The sexual intercourse are used as a plot device, and like a lot of stories actually, because intimacy like that, intimate scenes like those are used very often in media and in relationships. It's normal, it's one step, unless you're sexual, I guess, or really religious. But even religious people at some point end up really doing it, unless you're a nun, I guess. I don't find it a problem that it's like that. It was directed by a gay man. I think you know better than anyone if the sex scenes are not great. But also you have to understand that this is a show, this is fiction, this is not supposed to be an extreme depiction of reality. Of course, I myself as a woman, I can't really describe and criticize if the sex scenes are extremely accurate or not. I like that they put a different depiction of intimacy in the show during with Scott, Kip, and Ilya and Shane. You really show different side and aspect of characters, and you go and fulfill it completely. You really know and you can feel that this show was created by queer people for queer people, and that it's fine if it's created like that. It's normal and it's sensible. It's people who understand the subject and what they are writing or what they are creating about. I hope you had a great time. I hope you liked this video. I really wanted to talk about this series. This part is more about me talking about what I appreciated and what I found genius in the series, and etc. To be able to, at the end of the part 2, reach a conclusion on whether or not this is good rap. So you don't have to watch everything I say in this video, but I think it's sensible and I had to talk about it to be able to reach a conclusion. And I hope you had a great time, even if it was a bit long, but I hope you had a great day, night, whatever. Goodbye!